I'm so humbled to be here with all of you. You're just so creative, inspiring, and you all break the mold in some way, shape, or form. We all are, and I know it's a challenge, and we're going to be talking about those challenges and those experiences and how these incredible people also have been inspired. It takes a lot of valentía to break the mold. And we're going to be talking about that today. So I urge you to please take notes, but also put a question or two, because at the end, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're gonna have a little Q&A. And these are people that have been in this industry for a really long time. So definitely there's something to learn about them, a lot to learn from them. I got to chat with them a little while ago, and there is so much there. Así que bueno, I wanna give it up for three incredible, talented entrepreneurs. I have a mom, a historian, a creator. Tenemos a Edgardo, tenemos a La Gata, y tenemos a Zoila Darton. If you can all join me on stage. A ver, un aplauso más rico y más grande para ellos. Eso, aquí, si nos podemos sentar. Zoila. Ay, mira, ve. Mira, ve.
Hold on.
Eso. She did it.
Vertically challenged. This is not on.
Hi. Zoila is a founder and creative director of Word Creative Agency. Dios mío. Whenever you guys get a chance, take a look at her website. It blew my mind. Luego tenemos a La Gata. Gata, sube la manita ahí. Eso. She is the executive producer, historian, and multimedia artist. She is phenomenal. Y también tenemos a Edgardo Miranda Rodríguez. He is a graphic novelist, philanthropist, and creator of La Borinqueña. I'm so thrilled, I know. Y tú sabes qué, voy a mover mi silla un poquito so I can see all of you. Espérate. Ahí, did I mess up anything? ¿Me pueden ver? Que yo sé que está todo aquí arreglado for the cameras. Ahora sí nos vemos. And I want to start with you, Zoila. To you, what is breaking the mold?
Oh, that question was not on the list. No, I'm just kidding. First, I just want to say hi to everybody. Thanks for being here. I have 2 children, one of which I had last year, so I have note cards, just because sometimes I forget like words. So just, I'm a little scripted. I think that, oh God, that's such a loaded question. So I'm 39 years old. I'm what you call an elder millennial. I grew up here in New York City. And when I was in middle school, I had a beeper, right? That's how old I am.
I got in my 30s too. I didn't have a beeper, pero mi mamá
I had a beeper. There's a scale of 30s. I'm 39. I had a beeper, and then I had a cell phone freshman year of high school, and Facebook was open to colleges my very freshman year of college. So I bring this up because I think in the world that we live in today, it's very challenging to break the mold because we're surrounded by each other constantly. Here in New York City, and anybody that's from a city, big or small, we used to have these things called subculture, right? Where you could exist in this kind of like container of the culture, whether it's from your block or from the city as a whole, and you were pushed through by that community to figure out how you were going to break the mold, right? In your world. And now our young people are surrounded by trend upon trend upon trend that are repetitive trends, or, what is even new anymore? And so I don't really know what a mold is anymore because everybody is in the same mold. So I think that to break the mold these days, it's literally as simple as just trusting who you are and knowing who you are and believing that you're allowed to be that person in public. And then of course there's degrees of mold breaking, professional mold breaking, if you want to break the mold as a family, like how, what that looks like for you. But I think from a personal and a creative perspective, it really is about drowning out the noise that we're surrounded by every single day, getting off the phone, getting outside, go to dinner with your friends, invite your friends over for dinner. That to me is breaking the mold. Really unsubscribing is breaking the mold.
Wow. I was not expecting that.
It wasn't on the list. I didn't have time.
She gets surprised. Well, I love that. That's when you are. That's when you hug your essence and the way you were actually created. That there is nothing wrong with you by hugging your essence.
You're in perfect harmony with yourself.
Exactly. And when we talk also about breaking the mold, Edgardo did a thing, right? Edgardo created a character that when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, I look like her. You created La Borinqueña, and I know we are going to be chatting a little bit about La Borinqueña, but I want everyone to be put in context about what La Borinqueña is, because she is an incredible, curly superhero, brown girl. And it was crazy because while I was growing up, I never saw anyone on TV that looked the way I looked. And that's why over the years, just like you start pretending to be this person that you're truly not to see if you're able to fit in. And you're all about not fitting in and just breaking that mold when it comes to the character that you created. So, aside from the little bit that I shared about her, I know you have probably a whole book about La Borinqueña. Tell us.
Well, the reality about what I do with my graphic novel series and the character is that I'm entering into space, just like any other space where storytellers, artists, as many are in this room and hopefully will learn from this conversation, is dominated by white males. And the comic book industry is no different. Since its inception in 1938 with the first successful ongoing series, Superman, there has and continues to be a perpetuation of stories that are dominated, produced, edited, published by white men. And they remain to be the gatekeepers. The majority of editors and publishers are still white men. I took an alternative route to storytelling and to publishing by becoming an independent publisher. I took a route that was rooted and tethered to my background as an educator, as an activist, and as a parent. I took a different route as a Boricua who is really well aware of my heritage, who has madrinas who are young lords, madrinas who have founded institutions, and saw the heroism that's always been in front of me. And that inspired me to create this series that 8 years later continues to be published. And recently we found out that 3 of our books are being inducted into the permanent collection of the Smithsonian. These are books that are independently published by this Boricua that's on the stage right now. So I'm living proof that not only can we produce content, we can publish content, and we can have our content and our stories become historical record in institutions that we pay taxes to. In case y'all don't know, the Smithsonian is a public institution that we literally fund with our taxes every year. And to also something that you said about seeing yourself, that's something that's very conscious that I'm aware of. We spoke about this prior to coming to the stage. As Latin people, we perpetuate colorism, we perpetuate a lot of bigotry in our storytelling and in our content that is part of our colonization. And what I try to do with my stories is acknowledge that. I didn't come into this game as someone fresh out of college with just this original idea. I came into this decades already in, being a father, being an entrepreneur. I've been running my own design studio for 25 years now. So out of my studio and out of my own resources and through some public funding I've been able to find, I've been able to create this series. 8 years in, I'm meeting young people who are like out of college or finishing high school who are now saying, I grew up with La Borinqueña. And that's something that's phenomenal because when you're already an adult and you heard about the project, it's like, oh, I wish I had this when I grew up. And it's for you, but it's also for that next generation coming up because now it's normalized for them. There are action figures, there are action dolls that look like La Borinqueña. We have a muñeca who literally has curly hair that you could brush that looks just like you, right? And that I feel it at its core is the power of recognizing our potential. I give mad props to Calixto and everyone that's been a part of this institution, because we have to recognize that this festival is not just an event, it's an institution that's been around since 2000, something that came up in New York City, you know? And I feel that this festival, my work and the work of so many others is on the shoulders of so many Latin people who decades ago migrated into New York City, fought for our rights, became the first elected officials, introduced Latin studies into various colleges across the CUNY system and the private school system. Y lo que nos falta, y lo que nos falta. Gracias.
Acabamos de empezar, ¿no? Mira. Were you afraid to start that whole breaking the mold within something that was already like so stiff and so boxed in at any given moment?
I was afraid when the book was actually in the hands of like journalists and they actually had to make reviews, right? That's really when I got afraid, because it's something when it's in here and it's something when you put it out there. My cousin, who's a professor at SUNY Purchase, he's also a filmmaker, and my madrina was also a filmmaker. They always like to sit in the back of the room when their movies are on the screen. And that's like the scariest seat in the house, because they're not looking at the screen, they're looking at you all. So with me, when you're a writer, you don't have an audience. You have to wait for that review. And the first review we received was from Washington Post, and it was an incredible review. So it literally set the tide, because after that, we continue to be the only independently published superhero series that receives mainstream media coverage without having the backing of a major publisher or agency or firm. Tú lo ves. It's like what Jay-Z says, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman, you know?
Me encanta. Thank you so much. I mean, it takes courage, and you guys are all just so courageous. Tenemos a la gata, muchacha. La gata is a powerhouse. Gata, you wear incredible hats. You're a historian, you're an entrepreneur. Aside from everything, eres mujer, eres espectacular. You have an unbelievable podcast and platform where you speak your minds, but you also speak so much truth. And you're also a teacher. There is so much that encapsulates who you are. Y cuando se trata de lo que es el reggaeton, you're an expert on it. And one of the things that we see in reggaeton is obviously the lyrics and how these lyrics are changing for the better. Pero how do you think, when it comes to also breaking that mold, between keeping what the reggaeton essence is, but also bringing it forward to the next generation?
I'm like, was that on the list? Principalmente saludo a todo. Is this on?
No, it's not. Yeah, you gotta push it on.
Put it on. Oh. Hello. Ahora sí. Can I use yours? Really quick? Hello. Ahora sí. Principalmente saludo a todo. Happy to. ¿Qué te digo? I'm chewing on everything that came in that question because it wasn't on the list. But cuando se trata de la evolución, the evolution of the lyrics of reggaeton, I wouldn't say it's evolving too much. I would say that the beats are, definitely. I'm a nerd for reggaeton. I'm obsessed with like the beats. I'm a musicologist. I consider myself a ethnomusicologist. I feel like we can really mark moments in history with the different rhythms that are used in reggaeton throughout time. Claro, todo comienza with dembow, everything starts with dembow, and then it goes on from there. With that said, I would definitely say now there's like, reggaeton is the #1 genre in the world. It's the most listened to genre in the world. There's so many different, things that the industry is pushing regards to like the heights that reggaeton is like now reaching and the ceilings that it's breaking. But as a consumer, right, because I'm a fan first and a critic second, I would like to think, I would definitely say that these artists are still pushing the envelope. There's still a lot of frequeria in this music, which we need that. We need, a variety of lyrics, because the beauty of reggaeton is that it's a reflection of different experiences. I love maleanteo. I grew up in the projects. I still live in the projects. Listening to Hector el Father growing up, hearing the Deja de caer todo el peso with the stomping. I'm like, oh, it's giving guerra. I can relate to that. My boy got shot right there. I live in a guerra for real, like aquí en la calle. That's real to me here in the States as it parallels to experiences in Puerto Rico. Never mind the police, never mind the militarization, never mind how it all relates and how it parallels in different communities across the diaspora. I'm trying to stay within the realm of the question. Pero con eso dicho, I would say that, reggaeton is definitely changing. There's good and bad with everything. At the end of the day, I would say that, these artists are, I am an artist myself. I'm still processing what it means to create today, because today, we're thinking of different parameters. Is it short enough for a stream on Spotify? I don't want to think about that in the studio. I don't want to think about that. Like, oh, if after they play that, they're going to play it again. Like, is the chorus catchy? It kind of dissolves the essence in a way that makes me a little sad. At the same time, music, the function of music, it exists in different ways. We listen to music to tune in. Some of us listen to music to zone out. Some of us listen to it to activarnos, right? Like, oh, vamos pa la calle. Like, we need music that's gonna hype us up, right? Music has different functions. That's the beauty of music. That's the beauty of reggaeton. And I feel like as long as that's present, estamos bien.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you on that, for sure. A ver, este micrófono lo pueden subir un poquitito de volumen, porfa. No, bueno, porque soy la voy contigo.
Okay.
Cata, no. Bueno. Dike, I'm gonna go back to my scripted question. Pero before I do that, what you were mentioning about as long as you stay true and as long as you stay like creative, the growth is inevitable in a way, because music is also shaping the next generation. Entonces there is such a big responsibility that the artists carry within themselves y lo que nos sale de la boca, because we have power in our words. You know what I mean? So thank you for sharing that. Really, thank you for sharing that and for being faithful to your thoughts and beliefs and for creating everything you have, because you're also shaping the generation. So I wanted to thank you.
I appreciate that, especially as we see some of our favorite artists going in different...
No, not today.
Bueno, continuamos. Nicky Jam, what are you doing, Nicky Jam?
Nikki, she's so hot.
Espérate. Déjame volver donde soy. Espérate, muchachos.
Continuamos. Uy.
That was a funny moment. Espérate.
Okay.
We all saw that. Dike, maybe you didn't see el discurso, but you did see that post, right?
Okay, moving on. If you don't talk about him, he doesn't exist. Okay.
I know, for sure.
I've been saying this for years.
Listen, Zoila, when I was looking at some of the things you've created, because you've created so much, I stumbled, obviously, upon your agency. Hello. Dios mío, your agency is life. There were so many beautiful things about it, and I wanted to ask you, as the founder of this agency, what gaps in the representation of our Latino identity that made you want to take on that responsibility and that step to actually create your own agency and make sure that your word and our word as Latinos is heard?
Okay, we do not have all day, so, because there's a lot. So, okay, I do kind of want to start at the beginning. So actually, my mother is in the room. She's in the back row. That is La Mayimba Marty Cuevas. So I'm the daughter of a musician, two musicians. My father and my mother are both musicians. My father's Panamanian Jamaican, and my mom is Ashkenazi Jew. But that lady back there has, since I was about 6, that's when I can remember, has been bringing me to the forefront of tropical music and making sure that songwriters and composers and musicians are all paid fairly and equally and have proper contractual agreements with the record labels and the managers and the publishing houses to make sure that they are good. So that's been my foundation. And I want to just shout out my mom for that, because you taught me what it looks like to make sure that people are taken care of and that they feel like they're seen. So I worked with my mom for many years in the music business. Prior to that, I worked in fashion. I did a lot of things as a young woman in New York. But I would say that word, Zach, you could take her outside. That's my daughter. She's not gonna stop talking. Just take her out. Word was a means to an end for me. And I say that not as a negative thing at all. And I think that a lot of projects, companies, and just creations that come from us, from people of color, from people that have experienced challenges in life, come through in these moments of desperation at the end of the day, because we have been forced to be creative. Right? Whether you were a kid that was like, raised by a single parent and sometimes you had to figure out how to get back into your apartment or get home, or you were somebody that was in the mailroom at a huge corporation where kids like you never make it out the mailroom. We're forced to be creative. However, we're not always given the language or the tools to understand our applied knowledge. And by applied knowledge, I mean the things that you do in your daily life that can also translate to your professional life. We want to talk about breaking the molds. I broke the mold with my agency, not on purpose. I wasn't trying to be like, huge at anything. I really wasn't. I was just out here doing the work. But it was because I took my applied knowledge from life and used that to really determine where I needed to show up and how I needed to support my own dreams, the dreams of my peers, and then at the end of the day, the work that we do is not about me, even though little baby Zoila, growing up in Spanish Harlem, like reading Vogue and listening to Celia and listening to Tribe Called Quest needed this, but it's about the future, right? And then what you have to continue to do is just keep showing up, right? And not being afraid to let them know why you're here, what you're here to do. And this is the thing. You're gonna get told no. People are not gonna like you. And you can make a decision on what kind of career you wanna have. I could have many times just rolled over, and I might be more wealthy and more well-known, but my heart would not be able to take it, because that's just not who I am. And I know that I'd be doing a disservice to my people if I were to do that. Because, word is not just about being Latina. That's not what it's about. Word is about being someone who knows you have something really great to give, but nobody ever wanted to listen to you. There's so many people like that. There's so many people that are afraid. And so when the work that we do, whether it's with Max, who one of my first big clients was HBO. Shout out Jess Vargas. She's not here right now, but she was one of my first big clients to really take a chance on me. I've directed Selena Gomez. I've directed a dancer who's now in the Not Like Us video. I got there because their stories were stories that nobody else could tell. I didn't tell Selena's story about being a singer. I told her story about her connection to being Latina, which had really never been done before. And I brought in 35 other young Latina people from LA and all over the US to sit and be with her in this space. And she wasn't even the star. And that's why it worked. But I also was not very welcoming to certain ideas and partnerships that have been brought to the table, because I've had people say, open the keys to give me the keys to your community. And I'm like, I don't know. You're not invited. So
You can't stay with us.
yeah, so I think that by proxy of being who I am and being in the community with the people that I've been in, I've been raised in New York. I have best friends that have been in my life since I was 2, 12, to this day. And we're all different. And we're very close in the ways that we've had to challenge the status quo to keep pushing. I use that knowledge to understand what people need and what the world needs to see through picture, right? So that I don't know if that made any sense.
He did.
But
He did,
that's
for sure.
Yeah. That's how I did it.
I love that, and it's a challenge to change the stereotypes and to expand Latinidad, and bringing a little bit of what you shared. Thank you so much, because I feel like you spoke directly to me. Seriously, I have a question for Edgardo. How do you challenge long-standing stereotypes of Latinos' identity in your work? And this is obviously particularly with La Borinqueña, which is like the baby now, the newest, yeah? But not just with La Borinqueña, but also in other creative projects that you have worked on and that you continue to work on.
Well, beyond La Borinqueña, just to share, I have had the opportunity to work with Dara McDaniels of Run DMC, produced a graphic novel series based on an alternative version of him in another reality, rather. John Leguizamo, I've worked on 2 books for him. But when I work on projects for clients, this is their vision. And there's but so much that I can, como se dice, guide. With John, I serve in the role of editor oftentimes, but John is a genius. He's an incredible storyteller, so his stories are his stories. Pero in La Borinqueña, with the stories that I publish and write myself, I do challenge myself to create characters that are tethered in a reality that oftentimes is not the reality that we see ourselves in media. Although the stories take place in Puerto Rico, and the character is from Brooklyn, and she finds herself living in Puerto Rico now, her core group of characters are very diverse because Puerto Rico is very diverse. Her best friend is actually Chinese Dominican from the Heights, and she moves to Puerto Rico because there's a large Dominican population in Puerto Rico, there's a large Asian population there. And so my stories try to give us a perspective of ourselves that we're really not used to seeing. And the reality is, because when we are seeing stories, and Max is dope with some of the projects they do, but then they also license other properties that they didn't produce. And the majority of the stories that we see ourselves were not produced, written by ourselves. So when we see characters that perpetuate a stereotype, that's because way before that's even presented on the screen, there was a casting director that says, "You're not Latin enough. Give it up, give me a little more." My older son is an actor. He will probably not go into acting for the reality because he's a light-skinned Puerto Rican who doesn't speak Spanish, and he has this kind of como dicen los ejecutivos en el estudio, an ambiguous ethnic look, because we're not brown, we have to be browner, or we have to have an accent and stuff like that. So the characters that I create, they're college students, they're educated, they're progressive, they're grounded. That's a reality that I grew up in. So I'm going to tell the stories about the people that I know. I'm not going to perpetuate stereotypes porque para eso están los gringos para hacer eso y seguir haciendo eso. ¿Para qué yo tengo que meterme con eso?
Wow! We tell our stories based on our reality. And that's amazing to know. And you're talking about something that not a lot of people are talking about because they're afraid. I actually was told one time by a producer, he was like, "You're too Dominican." Yes. Y esas son palabras que marcan a uno. They mark you, and if you hug those things, they can damage you. Your accent is too Dominican. Someone that's not Dominican will not understand you. And those are things that, oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps. It was a phrase that I needed to heal. Because if you don't heal it, you're going to start treating other people the same way because you start normalizing things that are not normal. So thank you so much for sharing that.
I will add one more thing real quick. When this festival kicks off, please take the time to watch as many of these short films and features as possible, because these are going to be the most authentic representations of ourselves that you're going to see. And you probably won't see them beyond this festival. Not everyone, unfortunately, gets a deal And this is an opportunity for us to shine. There's an opportunity for you to meet these filmmakers. Some of them are in the audience right now. Some of them will be in the back when their movies are being screened. This is an opportunity. And trust me, as a storyteller, we need to hear what you think. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Was there something that resonated? Share that, because that's what gives us the, como se dice, the move, the stimulus to continue to create these stories, right? We're not always gonna get that deal, but what we need is ánimo. What we need is apoyo. What we need is amor. Amor.
For sure. Who are the filmmakers? Levanten la mano. Wow, we have quite a few. Yes. Wow. I love it.
That's how you do it.
Bueno, ahorita eso. Ahorita también una donita o un Doritos también. Ahorita, so we can all take a photo. Congratulations, you all. Yeah. Seriously, it takes courage, and it takes. Yo conocí un filmmaker, and she was like, she emptied out all her savings, hizo un mortgage, like another mortgage in her house. And that's like betting on yourself. Yeah. Y qué lindo when you count with a village to support you and
it's also
move on.
But it's, I think a better way of framing it is investing in yourself.
For sure. You're investing in your future. And you're investing also in creating a bridge for the people that are coming right after you. Because if it took me 10 years to do something, if it took you 20 years, 15 or 5, you want the person that's coming right behind you to take them a year. That's a blessing. Gata, are you ready? Gata, when it comes to reggaeton, reggaeton has been misunderstood and oversimplified for years. What do you believe is probably the biggest misconception about it?
Okay, so I first, before I get into that, I'm gonna give some context because I know a lot of people here haven't, met me before. I am the pioneering reggaeton historian. So, period. I just want to get some, I'm like, if they leave the room and they don't know who I am, that's on me, kinda, because I need to give more context here. So my platform, Reggaeton con la Gata, is a platform that I started when I was in college. I had survived the trauma and I was like, bro, I just went through years of therapy. Like, really, I'm about to be depressed. And I'm like, all right, I need to put my energy into something. I studied communications. This sounds cliche, but it's the truth. Go with me. I looked into the story of Oprah, old Oprah, and I was like, oh, she, ella cambiado un poco, but she built something. And I'm like, oh, she went through something similar. She put her pain into storytelling. I want to do that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. I studied communications. When I did my capstone, I had to put together a senior project. And that's when I started realizing, like, oh, has reggaeton ever been studied in an academic setting? And I'm like, oh, gracias a Dios, like, this has been done before. I found the work of, professors like Dr. Marisol Lebron, who she wrote the book on the militarization of the police, which, let me say something, with everything that's going on in the world today, we are more connected than we often realize. Puerto Rico was the stomping grounds for the militarization of the police that we see today. I implore you to look into the work of Dr. Marisol Lebron, where, the first time that police had AKs, that was in PR. That was during Mano Dura contra el Crimen, the Iron Fist against crime. That was, when Puerto Rico, Música Underground, because ya no era reggaeton, it was underground, was being created in Puerto Rico. And if just listening to this music, you're getting pulled over, you're being brutalized by the police. All of this connects to what's going on today. And these are the type of the threads that I like to pull. So as a student, I found the work of Dr. Marisol Lebron, of Wayne Marshall, of Raquel Rivera, Raquel Cepeda, etc. I'm like, lit, this exists. What do I do now that's different? And I'm like, okay, let's study implicit bias in the Latin music industry. What does racism look like? Because I'm Black and I'm queer and I love reggaeton, but let's be real. If I turn on a music video, I don't see girls who look like me. What is it gonna be like if I enter this space? I had the honor of interviewing Tego, who never to this day, like, just it's hard to get that man. You would know. Ese man, woof. I interviewed Tego. I interviewed 4 artists, 2 who are Black, 2 who are white, 2 who are mainstream, 2 who on the rise, and I compared and contrasted their experiences. And the evidence was just, yeah, this industry is racist. It's difficult even for men. So if I'm a queer, Black, fluffy woman, then like, how is that gonna be, tú sabes, I'm a little thick, but like, how's it gonna be for me going into this space? I'm like, it's gonna be difficult. And the number one thing that they struggled with was visibility. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna create a platform, it's gonna put my name on it, so that whenever you see this work, tú sabes que vino de La Gata. So Reggaeton con La Gata was born in 2017. I cannot believe it's been so many years. I'm 30, so like, you know, it's kind of nuts having the end of my 20s like with this platform and now starting this new chapter. Pero I needed to give that context because people don't know what I've done. And to, you know, further extend on that, my platform democratized access to the understanding of reggaeton history. Before my platform, you know, my platform is the first femme. Now you type reggaeton on Instagram, there's like 1 million. Yo fui la primera in regards to femme platforms that spoke on reggaeton, that was like a safe space to talk about race and, you know, all these different things that are uncomfortable in regards to reggaeton in that context. I was that first safe space. And since then, you know, created Perreo 101, which is my podcast, my baby, my lifeline. And it's a podcast that basically I created, you know, based off of Twitter conversations. Rest in peace, Twitter, because this is not Twitter, this is X, it's very different. Before, there was discourse. Before, it was like, oh, you know, like, I don't know what you mean, expand on that. There was no, this you? There was no, like, trying to sun people every 10 seconds. It was a genuine, like, exchange of information, of tú sabes, la gente querían crecer, and there was like a culture of that. Twitter changed my life. Someone DM'd me and was like, stop tweeting your ideas, record it, and put it into a podcast. I didn't know what a podcast was.
Wow, bless that person.
I needed to scroll down and see who that was because that was the best advice I've ever followed. I didn't realize I was protecting my IP. They didn't know what IP was, you know? And basically it secured my position in this industry. I'm sure you guys have heard of Loud, the history of reggaeton. I co-wrote that. Perreo 101 inspired that. I que saber el impacto. I'm like, if they leave this room and they don't know who I am. Perreo 101 inspired that project. They could not have done it without me, legal reasons. And since then, you know, I'm sure you guys have seen De La Calle on Paramount Studios or Neon on Netflix. The point is, if there are high-profile projects regarding reggaeton, I would have been involved. Now, to answer this, reggaeton and its evolution, it's something that I'm learning. I don't want to police too much after a certain point. I feel like things that are very important to keep the pressure on is definitely representation, because I'm sure you've seen a meme that I created. It goes viral from time to time. They put a Black girl in the video for some razzle dazzle, the directors. That's a major problem in reggaeton. I feel like it will continuously be a problem in reggaeton, largely because the manner of which it has, you know, risen into mainstream, there's this sort of notion that it's no longer Black at its core, that que no es una cosa de negros, that if it's associated with negritude, that somehow it devalues it, and it's like, that couldn't be farther than the truth. Pues sí, yo sé que he hablado mucho, yo simplemente quería dar contexto, pero that's the best way I can answer that.
I want to ask you a follow-up question, if you can make it really tight because we're very short on time. I want to talk about when people want to box you in one thing, because we were talking about that earlier. How do you deal with that? If you can give us just like one quick tip when people want to just say, no, you're just this or you're just that, and there's like no room for growth. How have you been able to overcome that, being able to have done so many things?
I think Zoe Lana Edgardo like answered it beautifully. It's just, that's that moment where you choose not to subscribe. You know, like when I was first starting off, I wanted to work in La Mega. And I remember having my hair more like yours, Diana. And the woman who I was interviewing with, she didn't know that I knew who she was. And she walked past me in the lobby and she sent her intern, de que, entrevítala a ella y sácala de aquí. She didn't know that I, you know, like she probably thought I was like African American, que yo estaba en la esquina, you know, children, whatever, I don't know. But, you know, like that was like a moment that it doesn't even cause me pain. It was just like, now this same person is emailing me, wants me to cover all their artists, wants me to get all involved. And at the end of the day, la cosa, like, you know, lo que se hace se paga. That's how it goes. So like, I'm not gonna stress nothing. At the end of the day, that moment when you choose not to subscribe and you choose to respect your dignity, your time will come and the universe will respect that. It's hard because like things are flashy in the moment, but it's so much more well worth it when you respect yourself in the process.
For sure. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I have this question, and I'd like to maybe wrap up this panel with that question. If you can all very quickly answer it, obviously from your lens, ¿verdad? Porque ustedes son tan similares y tan diferentes at the same time. What gives you all hope? And I can start with Zoila. What gives you hope for the future of Latino representation in media, art, and music?
Okay, here I go with another story. This is the way that I best explain myself, which is why I'm actually really excited to be here because I just wrote my first short film that I submitted for a grant. Yay! So let us pray. I'm going to tell a story. So the first year I was sent to work the Latin Billboard Awards because I worked with my family's company, my Jimba Music. I was like 26 maybe. I was by myself. I had gone before with my mom, but she was like, you can go by yourself. I don't want to do that. So I saw this woman who was very powerful in the industry, a woman, Latina, obviously not my skin color, but a Latina, buen Latina. And I went up to her and I was like, oh my God, like, hi, I'm Marty Cuevas' daughter. And she looked at me. And I'm not gonna repeat what she said because it was so fucking disgusting, excuse my language. It was horrific. And she brushed me off. And honestly, to this day, I have a vengeance against that woman. And she will pay one day, not directly from me, but as Gata said, the universe always returns. But it was in that moment that I realized, wow, we have a problem here. We have a major problem, and that was when I was in music. But prior to that, I'd worked in the fashion industry. I was a size 5 and when I was called fat, but there were always other women who were the ones that brought me up, and pushed me through the doors. And what I noticed about those women is that they were women like me, not necessarily color, but women that were bringing the best of themselves to the world in front of people that were bringing their basic, mediocre selves. Yet somehow they were being invited onto the stage. Listen, I don't know how they got there. That's not my problem, right? But I always told myself that when I had my own thing, and I even did this when I was like in high school, like I was always down to help a girl out, even if I didn't really like her. I was like, yeah, like you're in trouble. That guy's being mean to you. Let's bully him. But when I started Word, I didn't have any money, but I had access. And I continued to make sure that I was bringing people up alongside me. And I'm only here because I was able to make mistakes along the way and be forgiven by my peers, right? We have to give each other that grace. We have to give ourselves that grace. Deb, who's here, she's finally back in the room. Deborah was one of the first people to reach out, and I didn't even know she was watching me and seeing what I was doing. And today I'm here by default. I didn't get into Word or any of this work to essentially now want to be a filmmaker. I had no idea. It was really the pandemic that did that because it pushed me to a point of having to create content for these brands. and really discovering that like, oh, this is what I love to do, and this is always what I've been doing. I just never had the language for it. So if I can be that change for anyone, for any of you, and for our future children, for my son and my daughter that are here today, that to me is the most important thing, because I don't do anything today for me. I do it for tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Zoila. Edgardo, what are your thoughts on that?
On that or on your question? Okay, because I could talk about what she said too. What gives me hope in terms of our people, our culture, is this room right here. You know, in 2000, when the Latino Film Festival, the New York Latino Film Festival was created, it probably had this many people in the entire event, right? Kind of like that. And to see it almost 25 years later grow, and to also, let's just be real, that some of y'all are in your 20s right now in this room, right? That's powerful, right? Because an institution that was created 25 years ago, it still has the power as a brand to bring young people into it. That's inspiring for the future of our stories and our culture. For me, through my work, when I get an alert on my phone that somebody bought the first issue of La Borinqueña, and it's 8 years since that first issue was published, that gives me hope. When I meet somebody and I'm like, oh, I just heard about your superhero and I heard about the philanthropy that you're doing in Puerto Rico, that gives me hope. I'm not the opposite of that. I'm like, oh, how come they don't know about me? I got this many followers on social media. It's not about that. It's about the fact that I'm having the opportunity to connect with someone now. So if my story reaches you today, if this is the first time you even saw my face in this character, that's dope. Because then you're gonna walk away with like, oh, I need to look into what that's about. And you'll learn that as the only independently published graphic novel series by someone of Latin heritage or Puerto Rican heritage, not only have I been doing this for 8 years, but I've raised over $200,000 that I've awarded to nonprofits throughout Puerto Rico. So I'm creating a model for storytelling that is different from the models that we've been kind of like forced to think that we have to create. This model that thinks when we blow up, we move out. I am all about lifting up my people, my culture, and reconnecting with my culture.
Thank you so much.
Wait, can I just say something quick about what he said about the first person seeing this, and this is the first time? No, it'd be really quick. Somebody said the other day, you know, people get really upset when they only have 20 likes on Instagram. Imagine if 20 people showed up and clapped for you. So we need to start paying attention to the 10% of people that care and want to support what you're doing instead of the other 90%. Because they're either going to find out or they're not, and that sucks for them. So that's it.
Yeah, that sucks for them. Pal carajo.
On time, so I got you, Diana. Yeah. Pero what's been giving me hope is, I know I've been saying, yo soy la primera. It's an honor, there's cons to being the first. It means you gotta figure stuff out, and while you figure it out, other people are monetizing and whatever. You gotta move quickly, you gotta stay with the time. So being first isn't always the best, I'll say that. But what has been giving me hope is, honestly, the people who really have been coming after me. It's dope, no soy egoísta. Every time there's a new platform that comes up, me siguen, I studied you in college, that's a blessing. Wow. I changed my major because of you, that's a blessing. There are a lot of master's degrees that exist because of the work that I've done. My platform popularized the idea that reggaeton is intelligent, because prior, during the time, it was just reggaeton es música de baja clase, de esa gente, de whatever. And I'm like, bro, reggaeton is so complex and beautiful and a reflection of life. And so, hay que darle los flores donde, where it is. Jorge Ramos didn't bring me on to his show because reggaeton is not worth anything. And that's the peak of that level of respectability. With that said, what really gives me hope are the people coming after, the people who are thinking outside the box, the people who are advocating for music in different ways and who are opening the doors for others. That cultivation of culture is really dope.
Thank you so much. Wow. Wow. Me encanta. Something, I take so much from this conversation, and what you mentioned about you actually paying attention to the people who are following you truly it means so much because we're constantly so engaged in all the things that we don't have, that we don't give attention and the love to the things that are actually working now. So thank you so much. I believe we have time for one question. Yes, la chica aquí de Rosita.
Hi, Anna. The theme of storytelling really resonated with me because I went to the National Latina Institute focused on storytelling and PR. And a lot of my work is really trying to educate the media on our stories. And I find that it's hard, obviously. And a lot of my pitches I hear back with, oh, I'm not looking for an immigration story. Or,
Wow.
do you have more trauma we could add to that? And I'm like, if you read my pitch, you would have realized that story is not about immigration. It's not trying to get trauma porn out there, trying to tell our voices about strength and resilience, especially for our volunteers that we call Poderosas. So my question to you is, how can I continue to authentically push forward to really share our narratives around the...
I have an answer to that. Okay, so this is actually a big part of my work and why I'm kind of like changing the trajectory of the way that I do my work a little bit. I think, and bear with me, we need to shift a little bit away from pitching ourselves out as just like Latino stories. We are people stories. Like, I always use the example of like abuelas or nonas or whatever you want to call them, grandmothers, grannies, you know, they're all the same. They all like to sit around and gossip. They're gonna try to tell you to eat more food. They're gonna do weird stuff. Most of them are immigrants for the most part, and if not, their parents were immigrants. We're so much, and I don't wanna sound like our girl Kamala Harris, but she's absolutely right. We are so much more alike than we are not. And I think when we're talking to these, you know, white folks and even Black folks or Asian folks that may not understand the exact story, you almost have to remove the fact that it's just a Latino story because it is a human story. And you know, it's really hard to do that because we have things like Hispanic Heritage Month where it's like, this is the one time to celebrate, blah, 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 blah. I used to urge all my clients to stay the F away from this month. I was like, you need to talk to our people all the time. Especially if you're trying to sell stuff because our buying power is almost reaching 4 trillion. Like, you need to get it together. So I think for you, and I'm happy to talk to you about it, free of charge, there are ways to talk about the work that you're doing that respect and honor our ancestors, but also remind people to respect and honor their ancestors. Because I think that that's what people need, especially in America right now.
Thank you. Oh my God, thank you so much. I wish you can stay, but we have to go. Thank you all, and thank you all for creating bridges of opportunity, for bringing hope, for sharing your stories, because you guys are inspiring so many of us. So, por favor, el aplauso grande para ellos tres. And thank you for being with us.